Hey guys, welcome back to Ashire Books. Today I'm here to film my September wrap-up part 1. It worked really well to do it in 2 parts last month just because that way I felt like I could kind of talk about each book a little bit more and not kind of feel so rushed. So it's now the middle of the month. I cannot believe it's already the middle of September, but when I'm filming this it's the 15th of September, so it's the middle, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about the books that I've read for the first half of this month. So the first book that I read was Dreaming of You by Lisa Kleypas. This is a book that takes place kind of before her Wallflower series. It's kind of like a prequel, but I think it came out after. But anyways, takes place at one of the gambling clubs called Craven's. That's kind of briefly mentioned in the Wallflower series, and it is about Derek Craven, who is this man who was born with nothing. Like literally, he was born pretty much destitute and made something of himself, kind of through maybe not the most legal of means, but he's kind of rough around the edges, but he's a good person on the inside, but very, very just like broody. And his past has definitely shaped him into a very kind of not trusting person. So it's about him, and it's about a girl named Sarah Fielding, who is an author, and she has come to Craven's to do kind of like research for her new novel that she wants to write that's going to be set in like the world of like gambling and kind of the underbelly of London, if you will. And so she is so fascinating because she comes from a very sheltered background. She comes from a very small town in England, not far. She lives with her parents still. She's never really been kind of like introduced to anything, you know, seedy or anything in her life, but her first novel that she wrote got very good ratings and everyone loved it, and it was the lead character was about a prostitute. And I just found this so entertaining. Like, Sarah as a character was the perfect amount of like feisty but naive, because I mean, I think sometimes it does, like, I like that she was both, you know, because sometimes I think they're either naive or they're feisty. Like, it's definitely possible to have someone who doesn't have as much experience but is still really just like sassy and like, you know, she's gonna do what she's gonna do. So I love the two of them together. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I know a lot of people, this is their favorite Lisa Kleypas book, and I can see why. I don't know yet if it's my favorite. I mean, I definitely gave it 5 out of 5. I loved it, but I don't know. It was really good though. If you like her in general, I definitely recommend this one for you. The second book that I read this month was How to Hang a Witch by Adriana Mather. I just mentioned this in my Top 5 Wednesday video about not reading the synopsis or going in kind of blind. So I don't want to say too much about the actual like plot, but I will say that I loved this book and it kind of took me by surprise. I picked this book up kind of just, I saw it somewhere. I think it was just popped up on Goodreads or Amazon as like a suggestion for kind of a creepy book. And since it's getting into fall, I thought it would be really fun, but I cannot handle horror. I'm a scaredy cat, and I mean, I have to sleep with the lights on if I watch a horror film for like a week. So this one though is about witches, and I will say it's about witches, and it's about a girl who's a descendant of Cotton Mather, who, if you know anything about like the Salem witch trials, was a very big like person involved in the witch trials. And so it takes place in modern day Salem, and it's about the main character is related to Cotton Mather, and then there's also descendants of the witches that live in the town, and it kind of jumps off from there. I'm gonna keep it kind of like I'm not gonna go into it too much, just because I think you will get more if you just kind of jump in. There were some things I didn't love about this. I felt like sometimes the decisions that the main character made I didn't completely agree with, and they were kind of silly, and I think she could have maybe made like more intelligent choices, but I mean, she is young. I think she's only 16 in this book, so you have to keep that in mind when you're thinking of these things. Sometimes when you're younger, you just kind of don't think things through as much as you would when you're an adult. So I highly recommend this though, and the most interesting part is the author, as you see her last name, Adriana Mather. She is actually a descendant of Cotton Mather herself, and that's what kind of inspired the writing of this novel. And I love history, and so that was just so cool to me, and I love that she took that as an inspiration. And also the second book I just saw, there's a second one. This one definitely does stand as a standalone, but the second one looks like it's gonna be with the same cast of characters but like on a new adventure kind of thing. doing. But that one's gonna be about the Titanic. So I'm pumped. It comes out in October. So if you like witches, if you like kind of creepy books, if you like things that have a bit of a mystery to them, definitely check out How to Hang a Witch. That I read was Partners in Crime by Emma Andrews. And this one is, I think it's book 3 in her, book 3 in the Gambling on Love series. I read the first 2 and I really enjoyed them. This one is about a single dad named Hank, and he kind of was one of those guys that he was in all the bad places. He was into like drugs and women and things that he shouldn't be, and then all of a sudden he found out that he had a daughter born, and he kind of was forced upon him to become an adult and kind of become the caregiver, and he really stepped up and you really saw his true character. So that's the beginning of the book. That's not spoiling anything. I think that's in the synopsis, but so it kind of takes off from there. So it's about Hank and his adorable daughter Colby, and then they need a nanny. So it's about the new nanny that comes in, and the story, this is definitely an adult romance, so it kind of goes from there. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I feel like the idea and the premise, I love books with little kids in them. I think they're adorable, and I just think they make really cute storylines. But for this one, it was almost like too cute for me. Like, I could see where the plot was going from page 1, and there wasn't enough conflict. I mean, I'm all for, like, you know, having a good romance and not having too much angst, but I felt like this one could have used a little bit more conflict. I think there were things that would have come up and would have been a problem in a real life situation with these two when you're, you know, falling in love with your nanny. And I don't know. I felt like some of it was a little bit unrealistic, and almost like so unrealistic that it brought me out of the story, if that makes sense. Because I'm all for, like, I mean, I love historical romance. Those are not really historically accurate, and you know, but I feel like this one just kind of brought me out of the story because I just wasn't believing it enough. But if you like Emma Andrews' other work, definitely read it. It's a pretty short book. I think it was only like 120, 150 pages, so I read it really quickly. It was cute. It just wasn't my favorite from her. The next book I read was another Lisa Kleypas book, and that was, again, The Magic. This one is The Wallflowers .5, so it takes place right before the Wallflower series, and this was, again, it came out after the Wallflowers, but in like the time sequence it comes before. And this follows Marcus, Lord Westcliffe's sister, Aline, I think that's how you say her name, Lady Aline Marsden. And you kind of saw little bits of them in the other novels, her and her now husband. You heard mention of them in the books, and so this is her backstory. But it's also kind of like a dual love story because it's her and her prospective beau, which is McKenna, and that he is a servant actually at their house. He was working with the horses, and then he becomes like a servant inside the house. Obviously that was frowned upon. They're one of the wealthiest families in the area, and you were not supposed to marry anyone who was a servant. But it was definitely a lot deeper than that. The story was kind of unique for those two. I think Aline and McKenna so you saw them when they're younger, and then it jumps forward because something sad happens, and you see them as adults. And it was really a unique book for her. It wasn't, to me, it read really uniquely for a Lisa Kleypas book. It didn't seem like her normal kind of like plot line. But the other thing that was cool is not only was it about them, but it was also about Aline's younger sister and Marcus's younger sister, which I cannot remember her name. What is her name? Oh gosh, hold on. Okay, her name was Olivia. So Olivia is the youngest of the Marsdens, and this also is kind of a dual love story with her and her prospective husband, who is Gideon, who you do definitely see in the Wallflower series, and he is a New Yorker. He's from New York, and he's an American, and he's a businessman, and he comes over, and their love story is really, really adorable as well. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I did really like it. I actually think I liked Olivia and Gideon's story better than McKenna and Aline. I don't know why, I just kind of did. And it was really cute. I still really liked it. If you like the Wallflower series, I definitely recommend picking this up because it definitely gives you more background on the characters that were mentioned before, but it just wasn't my favorite one. But having said that, I mean, it was still great, just wasn't my favorite Lisa Kleypas I've read. So the next one I read was Drumline by Stacey Kestwick, I think it is. This is I would call it a new adult romance because they are in college. And if you can see from the title, the main character is on the drum line. And he was so swoon-worthy. I loved this book. I hadn't read a new adult that I had really loved in a while. They'd gotten a little bit just kind of the same, like everything seemed very similar and the plot line seemed a little overused. This one I gave 5 out of 5 stars. It was so unique. So it's about the captain of the drumline, and then they're having auditions, and the main female character is auditioning for the drumline, and that's kind of, they've never had someone, it's the snare line, I believe, which is one of the specific drums. And I love this. Like, I was in band in high school, and it kind of just brought back like nostalgic feelings, but I just thought it was so unique and cute. And I loved the main characters. They had the best banter. I'm a big banter fan. They had like that witty banter. They argued, but they were so sweet. I loved the development of their relationship. I thought it was the perfect speed. It wasn't too fast, but it wasn't dragged out for the whole book either. And I just loved it. If you are looking for a new adult book that is unique and set in college, but has maybe not an athlete in it, a different kind of athlete, definitely look at this one. I love this. I haven't read anything else by this author, but after this, I'm definitely gonna look her up. So the last full book that I read was The Duke and I by Julia Quinn, and I cannot find my copy of it. I think I left it at my parents' house when I was over there, but this is the first book in the Bridgerton series, which I've been meaning to start forever. It was on my TBR for this month, so yay, I got to it. I really liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I'm sure if you guys like historical romance, you've heard of the Bridgerton series. It's a series about 8 siblings, and each book is one of their stories, their love stories. So this one was about Daphne Bridgerton, who's the oldest girl. I think she's the 4th, but she's the oldest of the daughters. And her mom just reminds me of like a Mrs. Bennet. She's just like, she has like 4 girls, I think. So she's trying to marry off all of these daughters, and she's much, to me, sweeter than Mrs. Bennet. She's just she loves her kids, but she also wants them married. So I thought it was adorable. The male interest in the book is actually friends with Daphne's brother Anthony, and that's how they kind of meet, and it goes from there. And they kind of form this relationship where this is on the synopsis, so it's not a spoiler, but they form a relationship where they're like, it's like a fake relationship, basically just to get people off their back, because everyone wants them to get married, and they're kind of not at the moment interested in it. Daphne does want to get married, but she's just been so overwhelmed by her mom lately that she's like, can I just have a moment? So I really liked it. I bought the next book in the Bridgerton series, and I'm really excited to get to them. Julia Quinn's writing does remind me, I know a lot of people have recommended, if you like Lisa Kleypas, to check out Julia Quinn, and I would agree that they have that similar like witty dialogue and banter, and the relationships between the characters is just beautiful, wonderful. I loved the sibling relationships we saw, and I think we'll see even more of that in the future books. So definitely check out Julia Quinn. I'm sorry I don't have the book here to show you, but I'm sure you guys can find it. So that one I did give 4 out of 5 stars, if I didn't say. The last thing I wanted to mention was I have started another book, and I just haven't finished it, and that is The Conspiracy of Us. I was supposed to be reading this back in the Booktubeathon, but I just didn't get to it. But I picked it up on audiobook from Overdrive, and I'm kind of listening to it mostly, but I did pull the book out just in case I wanted to kind of like find the spot. So I'm mostly reading on audio, and I'm like, I don't know, like a quarter of the way through, and I'm really liking it. It's definitely, I've heard this compared to like a teenage Da Vinci Code meets like National Treasure, and it's definitely got that feel. I really like it. So I will probably talk more about this in my part 2 wrap up. Alright, so those are all the books that I have read thus far in September. I feel like it's been a pretty good reading month so far. I really liked most of the books, and I've been able to read quite a bit, which I wasn't sure how much reading I would get done now that I'm back in work and stuff, but it's been pretty good so far. Let me know so far what your favorite book that you've read in September is. I would like to know. And if you would like to like or subscribe, please go ahead, and I'll see you guys next time.